Today we're going to talk about research perspectives. Now, research perspectives can differ between disciplines and individuals. So there are three main research perspectives. There is the positivist, the constructivist, and the pragmatist. Now, the positivist, there's called something called the post-positivist, which means that they're the people who rely on experimentation, and this is what we know as the traditional method of experimentation that goes through observations, hypotheses, and so on until we have the results. And it's mostly using quantitative methods. And so, what do I mean by quantitative methods? Now, quantitative methods are the methods that involves numbers. Okay, so we use numbers, for example, blood pressure, heart rate, right? So these things require a number, and a positivist would consider these things. Now, if we moved on, there is something called a constructivist. Now, a constructivist is someone who accounts for the different perspectives of people. So they understand that different people can interpret things differently and that facts are not concrete and they could change over time. While, as compared to a positivist, they say that facts are permanent until falsified by another experiment. So, if we talk about constructivism, so it's taking in people's perspectives and it's usually using qualitative methods. So qualitative methods are relying more on description. Okay, so for example, how do you measure happiness, for example? Or you ask a group of people and you survey. So a survey goes into, for example, a constructivism perspective. Well, as if you compare again to the post positivist, you can use, for example, blood test. So we have the exact same numbers and then we use that. So now we're going to talk about the pragmatist. Now, a pragmatist you can think about as a combination of both. It's the researcher who takes on each of these perspectives and considers them and then chooses the perspective that best answers the research question. Okay, so for example, if the research question can be better answered using numbers, then they could go with a positive perspective. If the research question is better answered by taking on the perspective of other people, or asking people, or surveying, or having an observational research, then they would go with a constructivist perspective. So, a pragmatist can also take both into account. So, for example, they can do qualitative and quantitative research, and they can do observational research as well. There's also the true and quasi research that they do as well. So, a pragmatist is a combination of both, right? So it's a combination. So we can say that can use mixed methods. And so, of course, it differs between the discipline, for example. So typically, if you have a biomedical or biology professor, they would tend to be in the post-positivist side. If you have, for example, a psychologist or an educational professor, they would go post into the constructivist side. And if you have, for example, a computer scientist or a physician or some other professor, they can go into the pragmatist side. But of course, either one of them can adapt any of these perspectives, and these are the three most common perspectives. I hope this video was helpful, and thank you very much.